Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're jumping right into a pretty incredible medical detective story, a global hunt for clues to one of the biggest mysteries in pregnancy. Okay, let's start with a number that's, well, it's huge, 15 million. That's how many babies are born pretermed every single year. We're talking before 37 weeks. It's the number one cause of infant mortality across the globe. Just a staggering challenge. So the big question, the one that has really stumped scientists for decades, is why? Why does this happen? Is it our genes, our environment, something in our diet? The answers have just been so hard to pin down. So, to try and crack this massive puzzle, an international team of scientists launched this huge investigation. They gathered data from mothers literally all over the world. They weren't looking for one single culprit, but for subtle clues hidden in the mother's own biology, clues that might be the same no matter where you live. All right, so this brings us to the first big piece of this story, the sheer scale of this global pregnancy puzzle and the incredible effort it took to even start solving it. And when I say it was a massive effort, I mean it. We're talking about analyzing blood samples from over 10,000 pregnant women across 18 different countries. From Asia to Africa, Europe to the Americas, they were on the hunt for any common thread they could find. So they have all this data, and they started by looking at essential trace minerals in the blood. And pretty quickly, one of them just stood out. Yeah, copper. I know what you're thinking. Pipes, wires, the Statue of Liberty, right? But it's actually an essential mineral in our bodies, crucial for all sorts of things, including how our body handles inflammation. So the question became, could this everyday mineral somehow be connected to the timing of birth? Okay, so first things first, the scientists needed a baseline. What does a normal pregnancy look like when it comes to copper? And this graph shows it. See how the levels rise and then kind of just plateau around the second trimester? That's the textbook pattern. That's what's supposed to happen. So this was the million-dollar question for the whole study. Did the copper levels in mothers who delivered their babies early look any different from this normal pattern? All right, let's get into what the data actually revealed. And frankly, the results were kind of shocking in how consistent they were across the board. So check this out. The data showed this really clear link. For just a tiny increase in copper, we're talking 1 microgram per milliliter of blood, the risk of preterm birth jumped by 30%. And on average, the pregnancy was shorter by about 1.6 days. That's a huge signal. And what's just incredible is that this wasn't just in one place. It was everywhere. Look at this chart. Each line is a different study, a different country. And you can see almost all the dots fall on the same side of that center line. That tells you the pattern held true. From Bangladesh to Kenya to North Carolina, this was no fluke. It was a global signal. Okay, so this is where you might think, aha, copper is the villain, right? Should pregnant women start worrying about how much copper they're getting? Well, this is where the story takes a really crucial twist. It's the most natural question to ask after seeing that data. Is copper itself the danger here? But the science points to something a lot more subtle. And the answer, pretty definitively, is no. The evidence strongly suggests high copper isn't the problem. It's more like a sign that there's another problem lurking underneath. You see, scientists think copper is acting as what's called a biomarker. It's not the actual issue, it's just a measurable signal, a clue. Let me give you an analogy to make this super clear. Think of it like a smoke alarm. The fire, that's the real problem, maybe an underlying infection. The smoke is the body's response, which is inflammation. And the loud, blaring alarm, that's the higher copper level in the blood. You don't blame the alarm for the fire, but you sure are glad it warned you something was wrong. So that's a great theory, but you need proof, right? To really nail down this smoke alarm idea, the researchers zeroed in on one particular group where they had a ton of extra, more detailed data. And that brings us to Malawi. For a group of over 1,200 mothers there, the study didn't just have copper levels. They had the whole shebang, data on specific markers for infection and inflammation. And wouldn't you know it, the Malawi data connected all the dots perfectly. The mothers with higher copper, they also had higher levels of these inflammation markers. They had higher rates of infections like malaria and HIV, and a higher risk of preterm birth. It was this smoking gun, directly linking the alarm of high copper to the fire of inflammation. So this really flips the script. The big story here isn't about copper at all. It's about inflammation. This discovery isn't about telling people what to eat.
It's this incredibly powerful new window into the biology of what can actually trigger preterm birth.
And this leads to a really hopeful and frankly, potentially game-changing question. Could a simple, cheap blood test for copper one day help doctors spot at-risk pregnancies way earlier than we can now? I mean, think about it. It's still early days, but this research suggests copper could become this amazing early warning sign, a signal that lets doctors step in to manage the real problem, giving millions more babies the healthy start they deserve.